mini lecture on assembling evidence, your literature review. So the Bardak text talks to you about assembling your evidence. You first want to start your search using some of the sources that I shared with you in week 1. So start clicking on the hyperlinks, punching in keywords. If you haven't started your work, now is the time to do that. So you'll use the interpretations that you gather from the data to identify opportunities and threats. And the next mini lecture, I'm going to cover SWOT analysis and a few other ways to analyze data that you've collected from your sources. And that exercise is meant to identify roadblocks that might prevent possible solutions or resources that can be used to usher this change that you will come to some conclusions at the end of your analysis. So for example, if you propose that we have 2 initiatives to reduce recidivism, maybe one initiative is being implemented in the state of Texas and the other in Alabama, but you see some flaws with the Alabama model, that's a roadblock to you actually getting to your successful ending. But the Texas model appears to be successful. That's a resource that you can bring in further into the analysis as a possible policy option. So just be mindful of that as you're collecting data. You also want to use facts versus declarations of opinions. Sometimes people can take statistics and wrap them with their opinion, and it reads as a fact. So I want you to start exercising your ability to discern the difference between good facts, clean, straight facts, versus bad facts. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to understand the difference between data, information, and knowledge. So data and information are often qualified as facts, and they're useful in a policy analysis, but knowledge, not so much. So let's go through each definition. So data signals that flow, or the flow in a steady stream from observations, and can be stored, categorized, or transmitted. So just think the numbers 3, 5, 7. Now, they don't mean anything until you put them together and put them in a context. A 357 is a type of weapon. That's the information that we now have because we've given those numbers some context. Now, knowledge, these pieces of knowledge that you're going to come across in your review can be subjective, and they're hard to sometimes to separate and say, okay, is this knowledge or is this an actual fact? Knowledge tends to be someone's take on facts. So if I said that this 357 represents a type of gun, knowledge would be, yeah, but the 357 is not really that great of a handgun, right? And so I want you to avoid knowledge and focus collecting data and information as evidence for your analysis. So now evidence is defined as information that relates to existing beliefs about a population or the associated problem and the potential to mitigate that problem. The example that I've placed here on the screen, the population would be blacks in the United States. The problem would be homelessness among blacks, imagining that there's enough magnitude there. The evidence that we want to collect is housing statistics about black ownership in the United States, or statistics on homelessness among blacks for the past 10 years, or both. Knowledge would give an opinion as to why these statistics exist, or give a take on where the statistics came from, and give you extraneous information that you don't need. So a few additional tips for your writing. Your aim should be to present good data, right? So be selective. We just talked about bad facts and knowledge. You want to avoid that. And I know it sounds weird, but you do want to avoid that for your analysis. Avoid using data that appears to be tainted. And if you can identify bad facts and knowledge, then you will avoid tainted information. Rely on multiple sources. Don't just draft your problem statement or your background information using one article. And sometimes it's best when the fact seems alarming to have two sources that are also saying the same thing instead of one. So use your sources. Be critical. Analyze your evidence with the end goal of identifying roadblocks and opportunities. Again, having the SWOT analysis in mind, which would be your next step. Determine if the fact is good or bad. Be willing to discard bad facts. So don't just hold on to things when you even question the validity of the fact, just because you want to have filler for the paper. Or rather, you have a shorter paper than a paper that's filled with bad facts. Now, the next mini lecture will give a few scenarios. You don't have to use a SWOT analysis. I'm going to give you a few options to how to interpret the data that you've collected in your scan. Good luck.